Hello guys, I am Prateek Singh and I welcome you to my YouTube channel. This is video chapter 4 of my Azure Cloud Shell web series. And today we are discussing a major development in Azure Cloud Shell which was recently announced by Microsoft. That is, going forward, Linux containers would be used as a backend for Azure Cloud Shell. Microsoft announced in May that this was their plan, but it was just implemented last week. And now every Azure Cloud Shell session runs in one in thousands of geo-dispersed Linux containers that bring speed, consistency, and a simpler user experience to all Azure Cloud Shell users. But certainly some Windows-only user will observe some minor hiccups in getting used to Unix environment. So let me just launch the Azure Cloud Shell for you from my Azure portal. I will maximize this window so that you can see it properly. The first thing which you will observe is that Linux containers have faster startup time compared to Windows containers. So you will observe a huge drop in loading and setup time. Previously with Windows container, it used to take about a minute to start up the shell, but now it merely takes few seconds. And going forward, Azure Cloud Shell is no longer a Windows experience. Most of the use cases of Azure Cloud Shell are independent of underlying operating system. So switching to Linux container brought more good with very minimal impact. For a fresh spin of Azure Cloud Shell, you will notice both Bash and PowerShell now running and sharing the same Linux environment, and you can switch between them very easily. Mostly the experience is same, like the Azure Drive works exactly it used to work in Windows containers. So let me just quickly show you that. I'll do a get child item. I'll try to navigate my subscription and I'll try to look into the web apps folder. I would suggest you to avoid using ls command while navigating Azure RM resources inside the Azure Drive, because ls is a native Linux command and it won't be working properly like you would be expecting it to. Linux file system may seem a bit different to you if you have been only using Windows, but that is just an initial friction and you will get used to it in no time. Moving to Linux container also changed your home drive. So if I run $home variable in my Linux container, it would return a different path now. Previously with Windows container, we saw a path something like C drives user and the name of the user. But since being Linux, the directory paths have been changed. Default location of all your installed modules is also changed. So if you run ps module path environment variable, you will see some different paths now. With Windows container, they used to go into C drive, Windows PowerShell, and under the modules folder. But now the paths have been changed. And since this is a Linux container, Azure Cloud Shell runs on PowerShell core. So if I do a $ps version table, you can see it is running on PowerShell version 6.1, which is also called as PowerShell core, which runs on .NET Core libraries. Since it is running on .NET Core, not all your modules are supported on this. But Microsoft is heavily investing time and efforts to port these modules to .NET Core and make it available to you as soon as possible. And once they are available, you can use all your modules from Azure Cloud Shell. For example, the Azure AD module, which is still in preview for .NET Core. One more important point to mention here is, since the Azure Cloud Shell defaults to Linux containers going forward, now there is no PowerShell executable available. Instead, you will have to use pwsh command. So I'll just show you that. I'll type pwsh in my Azure Cloud Shell console and hit enter. And it will launch PowerShell core for you. And it no longer supports PowerShell.exe, obviously because it won't work in Linux. Linux environment is also case sensitive. That means in Linux operating system, small caps ls, which is used to list your directory items, is different from uppercase ls. Same applies to paths. For example, if I do cd to my home directory and to my users folder, it works properly. But when I change the casing of this path, it won't work. You also have to be very careful while using aliases. Some common aliases in Windows PowerShell like ls sleep are already native Linux commands and will not work in Linux containers like you expect them to be in PowerShell 5.1. So for example, if I run ps, it will return the processes running in the Linux container, but that is different from get process, which has an alias ps in Windows PowerShell 5.1. You can run the command get cloud drive to identify the file share which has been mounted as a cloud drive. I'll copy this, paste this inside the window, and I'll cd to it. This cloud drive is available through the storage account which is created during the fresh spin of Azure Cloud Shell, which can store and persist all your work, scripts, and files across all cloud sessions. In my last video, I demonstrated how to use Azure Cloud Shell inside Visual Studio Code. But after these new changes with Linux container, when I run the Cloud Shell from Visual Studio Code, I still see it uses Windows containers. Let me just show you that. So I'll go to my Visual Studio Code and hit Ctrl Shift and P to launch the command palette, then use Azure Open PowerShell in Cloud Shell. This will connect to a terminal, authenticate to Azure, and set up your Azure Cloud Shell. Once you see Azure Cloud Drive mounted, just go and run get cloud drive command. And you will see a mount drive in a Windows operating system. So the path is something like C drives users container administrator, and it was supposed to be something like home/pratik/cloud drive. So I was assuming that something is wrong with this Azure account extension by Microsoft. So I did a bit of research, and I went to their GitHub repository, and then I started to check the commits. And I noticed that Microsoft is already trying to fix this. So it seems like this would be fixed soon. But until that time, I think it would still run on Windows container when the Azure Cloud Shell is launched from the Visual Studio Code. So guys, that's all from my side today. If you love my content, don't forget to send your support in form of likes and comments on this video. And please don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channel, which is a motivation for me to create more such videos for you guys. Thank you for watching. See you next week. Bye.